three fully qualified candidates who want to.
So I would, well, I'm saying, anything else, entertain a motion?
I would make a motion to strike the two disqualified candidates from the slate and only hear from the three candidates who meet all three qualifications. Commissioner Chris Boyce.
Okay, so Commissioner Chris Boyce made the motion to hear from the three candidates that meet the residency requirement. The second was Bob Main from Coos County. I'm going to call through the rolls. So I'll start with Rod Taylor.
Aye.
John Sweet.
Aye.
Bob Main.
Aye.
Rod Alcorn.
Aye.
John Herzog.
Aye.
Court Boyce.
Yes.
Tom Kress.
Aye.
Chris Boyce.
Aye.
And Tim Freeman's an aye. So that gives us some direction moving forward. Is there any further questions about the process from any of the commissioners? Seeing none, the next thing on our agenda is to hear from those that are on the slate. So first, I'd like to know who's in the room here ready to speak. I see Representative Brock Smith. Is Tim Allen here in the room? I see Tim Allen. And how about Tom Miller? Yes, sir. Okay. So we're going to hear from those three, and we'll start with, since we have 15 minutes allotted for this, each of you will get 5 minutes. Again, when you're done with your 5 minutes, please stay at the podium for potential questions. So we'll start with David Brock Smith.
Good morning, Commissioners. State Representative David Brock Smith, House District 1. It's an honor and privilege to be in front of you this morning for this opportunity to continue serving Curry and Coos, in Douglas counties in my capacity in the Oregon State Legislature. I want you all to know that the things that drive me forward in the work that I do for our individual constituents is the faith that I have in our Lord, the drive and commitment that I have to the Constitution, and the desire to do good work for the residents in which I serve. In the legislature, I am everything natural resources because it is so important that we have those natural resource industries and their economies in Southwest Oregon. In doing so, I've served with some of you as a county commissioner previously. But more importantly, when it comes to our timber industry, being the timber capital of the world here in Douglas County, I've also served and had the pleasure of serving on the Association of ONC Counties Board of Directors, which is critically important to the resources that come to the county to provide the services to the residents of Douglas, Coos, and Curry counties. And I can say that aside from the gentlemen that are on the existing board and those individuals across the state that are involved with that, I am probably the one legislator in Oregon that has actually served on that ONC board and is still serving in the state legislature today. There are many things that are moving forward in the legislative process that are going to be critically important to our residents in Southwest Oregon. And I'm here to tell you that I will continue to fight and bring those issues to all of you for your support, because it's critically necessary that we have not only the engagement of our elected officials in various capacities of the counties, cities, sheriffs, chiefs of police, but it's also critically important that we have the engagement of our residents. And no one here has that been more engaged. In fact, I would challenge any other legislator in the state to be more engaged in making sure that the residents within my district have the information and what is happening throughout the state. I'm not doing this for glory. I'm not doing this certainly for an increase in pay, because there isn't any of that. I'm doing this because I've been committed to public service and making our region better, and growing our economies and pushing back against frankly, the oppression of the majority party in the state that doesn't understand what rural Oregon and rural Oregonians go through when they are making legislation and passing legislation and not listening to all of us. And to that end, since I've been a legislator, since 2017, campaigns are critically important. And I have been one of the top fundraisers in making sure that we have resources to get other Republicans elected to the legislature since taking office. In fact, this last cycle, I was second. Of course, the leader generates the most resources. But I was second in my caucus to generate the finances that funded campaigns that we went from 22 to 25 in the House and out of the super minority, which I know all of you and the commissioners from Curry County understand how critically important that is in the league. And so I'll close with you, commissioners, that my dedication to all of you, our constituents, and the region will not change. I've been working for all of you as a state representative that has portions of Douglas County since taking office in the state legislature in 2017. And I look forward to building a fantastic team with Representative Osborne, Representative Goodwin, Representative Wright, Senator Anderson, Senator Robinson, and my replacement to make sure that the values that are so critical to our constituents are brought to Salem and that we move together in a united front to make sure that our voices are heard for all of District 1. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you. I would like to note for the record, you get 1 minute and 10 seconds of bonus points. So you almost used up all your time. I'm sorry, 1 second, 1.5 seconds is all you had left. So pretty close. Questions? I'm going to start down the list. Again, I'm going to call the list that doesn't require questions, but you're welcome to ask questions. So Ron Taylor.
I have one question, Representative. When you stepped up to I forget the exact terminology for the committee engaged in the climate change debate.
Yes, sir. I was the co-vice chair of the Committee on Carbon Reduction. I don't get to name the committee.
Okay. Yeah. So you were named to that committee through no action of your own?
No, I was named to that committee by the Speaker of the House, but my work in 2017, when I assumed the office of state representative, no, I was in natural resources and energy and environment. I could say to all of you that there is no other legislator in the state that is engaged in more meetings on that subject, leading up to the cap and trade scheme that the majority party tried to push, and after.
One follow-up question. Do you believe that any changes in the Earth's climate are anthropogenic in nature?
No, I do not. We have a situation, and I'll give you a quote, actually. I asked the director of DEQ that would have been implementing the cap and trade program in committee, and I'm paraphrasing now, of course, please forgive me, that if Oregon were to go to carbon zero tomorrow, what impact would that have on the global scale? And he said, Representative, you are correct. It would be insignificant.
Thank you.
All right, John Sweet. And, I'm going to call down the list. You can ask questions, but you don't have to. Go ahead.
No question.
You're more than welcome to. I'm not trying to rush you. We have lots of time. Next one on the list is Bob Main.
I have a question about the wind energy off the coast. As you know, the Federal Bureau of Ocean Energy Management proposed an 1,800 square mile wind farm off the coast, Douglas and Lane counties, 13 miles off the shore and greater. I know that you got passed a wind energy bill through the House and the Senate and the governor signed. Do you still believe that that wind energy project otherwise known as BOEM, is still a good project for those counties.
Thank you, Commissioner Main. So I've never admitted that it's a good project in any of the work that I've done. The legislation that I passed was to make sure that the state had their opportunity to engage in the process, the federal process, because it is a federal process, because these wind energy lease areas are, of course, 13 miles, 18 miles off the coast, and the legislation that was passed was to have the Oregon Department of Energy do their own study, which they did come up with. They came up with, it was actually well done, and they came up with a lot of concerns about moving forward with the BOEM project. And as you know, Commissioner, I led the effort along the coast to do 6 listening sessions from Astoria to Brookings to get input and push back in leadership with the Coastal Caucus to make sure that BOEM slowed down and allowed us to be heard. And with your efforts and others, that pushback allowed for BOEM to actually come and do listening sessions on the coast, which they have never done before anywhere with these proposed projects moving forward. Also, the pushback has allowed BOEM, and it kind of forced BOEM to use the NOAA spatial planning tools that they have at their discretion, that they haven't used in the past, so that the 2 call areas are actually really drilled down to make sure that whatever lease areas are within those call areas will be accounted for with the data from the fishermen, mainly the trawlmen, on their own. And then lastly, really there are those large areas, as you said, but the transmission capacity to bring those electrons, if you will, to the coast is less than 1 gigawatt. And so it's more like 780 megawatts at most. And so what I've been focused on now is engaging the Oregon Solutions team towards a citizens engagement, because I do have a placeholder bill, because unfortunately as a state legislator, I can't stop the federal government from doing what they're doing. But what I can do in my conversations with BOEM is have a piece of legislation that will have your input and all of the impacted parties' input into that bill, so that we can essentially dictate, if you will, what the lease agreement and community benefit agreements would be. And there's also a piece of federal legislation called the SITE Act that is looking at those BOEM proceeds being split with the state, and then I'm working to make sure that if that's the case, they will be split with the adjacent counties of Curry, Coos, and Douglas, so that you have the resources that come from that federal program, if in fact it does happen, to utilize for economic development and other possibilities for your region as well.
So, Mr. Chair, I have a couple more questions to follow up from that.
So
Are you aware?
we're going to keep going with questions, no problem.
Are you aware?
Work towards conciseness.
Got it. Are you aware that those offshore wind proposed companies expect all of us to pay for the onshore upgrades?
So that's another thing that we plan. I'm not aware, because you have an opportunity, Commissioner, to again outline what we can within the community benefit and lease agreements. One of those things is like energy storage in southern Curry County, as well as making sure that the energy that they do produce, if they do come to fruition, comes to Curry County and then is wheeled north for the energy resiliency that is necessary on the coast. But trust, Commissioner, that I am in no way pushing for offshore wind, nor do I want it to occur. What I want to do is try to manage the federal process as best I can as your state legislator.
Okay. Now, probably you're aware that there are 2 projects on the East Coast, one in Rhode Island and one in Virginia. Both of those projects, the promoters, the manufacturers, and the power companies all went to their respective legislatures and got something passed called feed-in tariff, which has been talked about in our legislature. And for everybody that doesn't know, feed-in tariff means that if something goes wrong with a project, all of us, the ratepayers, are on the hook for making the investors whole. You're aware of that, right?
I am, sir.
Okay. Are you aware of how many maritime jobs, fishing, and transportation jobs would be affected by this project?
Of course, there's thousands of jobs, Commissioner.
And ancillary jobs that
Of course.
are in support of those fishermen. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. We'll go to Curry County. Brad Alcorn.
I have no questions for Mr. Smith.
Good. John Herzog.
No questions, Chair.
And the other voice, court voice.
Hey, today I get to be the senior voice, don't I, Commissioner Freeman?
You get to be the voice we don't have to look at.
Boy, did I step into
Yeah,
that
you
one.
did. Yeah,
I gladly represent that remark. No, I'm going to make it unanimous here. I have nothing at this time. Thank you for the opportunity, though, to speak.
Thank you, Commissioner. We'll go to the room, or to Douglas County. Commissioner Kress.
Brock Smith, I have a question for you on hatcheries. Southwest Oregon, our hatcheries are under attack. The hatcheries, doesn't seem like the Department of Fish and Wildlife wants to put hatchery fish in the rivers. I'd like to know your position on that and what you feel you can help us do to make sure those hatcheries stay.
Thank you, Commissioner. So, in my positions within the legislature, I've been pushing on these issues for the number of years I've served. It's actually the OEF&W Commission that is trying to drive away the hatchery program. Adamantly opposed to it, and been pushing back on them. I've testified to that point within the commission, the OEF&W Commission meetings, and have not only a piece of legislation and have produced a piece of legislation in the session to bring hatch box programs back into our rivers and streams, really in the off-channel habitats that produce wonderful data which supports how well they work. But I also have a piece of legislation that I'm working on that would actually increase the off-channel habitat for salmonids and actually monetize the adjacent property owner for doing so. Working with my colleague Cam Perry, who's an expert in these fields and does salmon restorations all over the state. And so I will continue to push back so that we can increase the resources. The commissioners of Curry and Josephine and Douglas County, or excuse me, not Douglas, but Jackson County, if you were, have been together and pushing back on the Coral River Hatchery program. And my understanding is that the Army Corps just allocated over $2 million to do the necessary upgrades on that hatchery so that we can actually start utilizing the facility as a whole rather than the dilapidated lanes that aren't used for this stuff.
Sure. So, do you feel like you can garner any bipartisan support for any of this work?
Yes, sir, I do. And I've had bipartisan support. You know, what happens is the ODF&W Commission, again, pushed back. We had a piece of legislation that I worked with the Oregon Hunters Association. I'm the chair of the Oregon Legislative Sportsman's Caucus. So that because we're changing the makeup of the ODF&W Commission because of the addition to the congressional seat in Oregon. And so we're going to have, this is going to be part of the whole larger conversation in the legislature. And as you know, as a state senator, the state senators are the ones who make approve the gubernatorial appointments to these boards and commissions. And so I am hopefully have the opportunity to voice these opinions on the Senate floor when these things come up.
Thank you. Commissioner Boyce.
So, David, I have two things that I want to talk to you about. The first one, you have been very responsive to me in being able to communicate about different issues since you've been in the legislature and I'm a commissioner. Whatever's going on in Salem, if I need to know what it is or why it is, you've always been very available to help navigate through those things. One of the things I think you probably remember, I got a hold of you one day and I was really upset. and it was about the vote on what I call the tampon bill. And it's this idea that, you know, we have to put feminine hygiene products in boys' bathrooms in schools. I will be the first to admit that a lot of the public hype about that and what was being said was being mandated wasn't entirely accurate. But nonetheless, you voted in favor of that. And I was upset about that and called you, and I needed to understand that. And you explained it to me that day, and I'd like for you to explain to me and the people here today how that transpired.
Thank you, Commissioner. I made a mistake, right? I mean, and so did all of my 21 other Republican colleagues in the House. You know, we received the data and the information that, you know, young women are embarrassed. They actually miss days of school. There's many of them that can't afford feminine hygiene products. And so we were all in favor of making sure that the resources were there for them. We had never any intention, not one Republican House member, nor did we ever think that the majority party would manipulate this piece of legislation to put feminine hygiene products in boys' bathrooms. It's ridiculous. There's no reason for it. And we were upset about it. To that end, you know, I apologize to you and made a mistake. There's multiple legislators, one of them, that have the legislation to fix that mistake. And we will be having that discussion because my piece of legislation actually gives the option of where those feminine hygiene products are located within their schools. And it puts the money back, or it puts the authority back into the local school board's control where it belongs.
I think I remember when you and I were talking about that, you had sent me the proposed language of the bill, which really contains the language about the school having the choice and that it being available in bathrooms that were designated or able to be used by female students. And then once it was finally published, there were some actual requirements in there.
It changed it to all bathrooms, right? We missed it because we never imagined that it would pertain to the boys' restrooms.
And so the next thing I have is this idea about your residency and representation of people in Douglas County. And I'll be the first person to tell you, although as a House District 1 representative, there is a portion of Douglas County that you've always represented. The work that you do, I think, has been noticed by those folks who live within that portion of Douglas County, but also by all of us, because the legislation that you work on for part of Douglas County, I think that's everyone in Douglas County. But you're aware that this Senate district is made up of about 75% of voters from Douglas County.
That's right.
66%. So, and I'm guessing that should you receive an appointment to the Senate seat today, that you're likely going to want to run for re-election to that same seat in 2 years.
That's right.
And in doing so, you're going to have to be able to show those voters that you've effectively represented them during that time.
Yes, sir.
You're aware of that.
Yes, sir.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
If I may add, Mr. Chair, that, you know, I have been representing portions of Douglas County, as you mentioned, Commissioner. But I've also been working with a former senator representing all of Douglas County, with former Representative Reed, Representative Goodwin, and now, again, Representative Osborne, and building that team. And so you will, as you have seen me in Douglas County often, I've come to you and check in. You will be seeing, of course, more of me and some of the residents of Douglas County, if given the blessing to be there state.
Well, I'm only gonna do one, and we'll try to be short because it's a technical question that a lot of people won't understand, but, the Oregon legislature has recently worked on a program called Good Neighbor Authority. Good Neighbor Authority allows, the state to work with the federal government on federal lands to forest projects. Specifically, they're allowed to, do these forest logging projects, and they're allowed to retain the timber receipts that are generated off the projects that would normally come to counties for county services. So my question to you is, would you be willing to clarify your position on Good Neighbor Authority to include not on ONC lands?
Thank you, Commissioner. Yes, so this is a very important question because I assisted in drafting and passing the Good Neighbor Authority piece of legislation with Representative, well now Senator Bonham, a number of years ago. And it was never my intention, as a ONC board member myself, when I was a county commissioner, towards the impact ONC lands. There's enough U.S. Forest Service land, state forest land for Good Neighbor Authority to be impactful, to help not only our economies, but the industry. So having ONC lands is counterproductive because the push that the ONC board is doing. So we'll be modifying the Good Neighbor Authority to focus on those U.S. Forest Service lands, such as the Umpqua National Forest.
Thank you. That's all I have for you today. Thank you again for being here. You're welcome to stay to the end to see what happens, or you don't have to. All right. So the next qualified candidate I'd like to call forward is Tim Allen. Good morning. And again, we're allowing up to 5 minutes, and you're welcome to start whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Commissioners, all, for having me here today. As I stand here, I'm looking back not only at the course of the past couple of whirlwind weeks, if you will. I go back quite a ways. If we go back to 2018, if you had asked me if I'd ever consider being in politics, my answer would have been no. In 2018-19, I came face to face with a competitor to the conservative way of life in a fashion few ever will. That experience changed a lot about me, and one of the ways it changed me was accepting that if I want to leave a legacy of a better world for our kids and grandkids, I'm going to likely have to someday get involved in politics. If you know anything about me, is when I put my mind to something, I typically eventually get where it is I'm wanting to go. A big reason for that is something I figured out early in life, and it is something that I feel many struggle with. I take 100% responsibility for the outcome of everything I do. I'm reminded of a really important lesson. I'm going to take you clean back to high school wrestling. I was in a match, and in those instances, they're judged by one referee. It was a really close match. It was a really important match. And I felt it was a bad call, and I lost it. I lost that match, and I expected to see my coach say something, and he didn't. And I was disappointed with my coach. So I had a conversation with him, and what he told me was, it's my job to win the match. It's not his job. If he was to step in and change the outcome of that, he won the match for me. And if I wanted to ensure my success in the future, I better figure out how to put a bigger point spread on my opponent or pin him. I know walking in here today, I didn't put a big point spread in this competition. I don't know that I put a spread at all on it. If I were to win today, it would be by luck. I'll not be making any excuses for the outcome of today's challenge, and I won't let anyone else make an excuse on my behalf. This is how conservatives bring back balance to our state. Not by wishing it was easier or making excuses, but by owning it 100% and making ourselves better. Win or lose today, I've learned a great deal over the past couple of weeks. I've met new people, I found supporters I didn't know I had. And frankly, I feel I've put up a pretty darn good fight, given this short amount of time. I've learned things about people and politics I didn't know. And in closing, I'd just like to thank all of you for taking the time to consider each of us. You have an important decision to make, and I know and I trust that you will make the best decision using your knowledge, not just of us candidates, but of the needs of your community. The vote should come down to who has been most effective in showing clearly how each of us best facilitate your community. Time was not on my side in this. However you vote, I look forward to sharing more of my vision with you in the future. Thank you.
Thank you. So you will get a little bit of extra credit because you did go a minute, 45 seconds short. Thank you. So we will go down the roll call list and we'll start with Rod Taylor. Do you have any questions?
I don't believe I have any questions. Thank you.
Commissioner Sweet,
Nor do I.
Commissioner Maine,
I do. Mr. Allen, I've never met you before, so I don't know much about you. I believe you have a business here in town.
Yeah, we started a business in 2003. Have a couple different businesses.
So my question is, have you ever served on the school board or fire department board, rural fire, city council, anything like that?
So elected position, I'm going to say kind of no. I've done economic development for the city, sat on commissions like that, economic development for the county, Gooseberry, Douglas, but never an elected position.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
thank you. We'll go over to Curry County. Brad Elkhorn,
I have no questions, sir.
Commissioner Herzog,
No questions, Chair.
Commissioner Boyce,
Thank you, Commissioner Freeman. I just want to mention, Mr. Allen, thanks for being a long-time employer. Sometimes we overlook the sacrifices and the compromises in the positive sense when you meet a payroll, and so I just want to extend appreciation on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Bush.
Commissioner Kress,
So, Tim, I've known you probably almost 40 years. It's been a while. Yeah. So one thing I do know is you are tenacious. And I know that you've got this small business background. Can you describe how you take that and make sense of politics and sales? Sure. So I appreciate the opportunity to touch on my vision a little. Part of what I've done in my business is joining with an association called the American Rental Association, and that came from advice from a business advisor that I really admired. He said, if you're going to jump into this market, you find the biggest, best association, join it, and participate. If you don't participate, you're wasting your time. So for a good 10 years now, I have participated a lot, and I ended up actually being on the executive board of this international organization. In that, we did a fair amount of work on a number of different legislative issues, and I had the opportunity to see strategies that were successful. And my goal is to someday be able to take those strategies and a clear slate, if you will, and approach this position and really focus on just things that are going to move the needle. In my opinion, sometimes we get a little too distracted up there, and so my goal is to eventually bring focus for a short enough amount of time to have an impact. You do realize, though, that people that on your associations you've dealt with and have a pretty good degree of common sense. You know, honestly, I think, again, this is where my idea would be to just really focus. I'm not going to be a person that's trying to do a whole bunch of irons at one time. Thank you.
not every legislator has no common sense. Let's get on the record. Anything else, Commissioner Chris? Commissioner Boyce?
Just a quick follow-up to thought line on development things for the most part. One of the things that I admire about you is you're not a guy who's going to participate in something like that if you feel like there's no momentum and nothing's going to be done. You don't have time to waste on things that aren't going to provide through. I really appreciate that. I don't need. But along the thought line that Tom was working on, you and your association, you all have a similar mindset and like goals. You're all trying to accomplish the same thing really for your industry. And that is a lot different than what happens to Salem. You've got a war being waged up there between right and wrong, between conservatism and liberalism, between common sense and I don't know what they call it on the other side. And in the middle of all that, you have to try to work with folks who, some might call their enemies to accomplish things that are good for our community. How do you do that?
Again, I'm going to just circle back to focus. And this is an area I've questioned in my own mind a lot because the level of focus I'm talking about is going to irritate some people. And my goal is to try and get conservatives in general to consider something like this because we can't go up there and go head to head and win this. The solutions I see are going to come from finding levers that maybe they don't see and cracking the armor and working it a little at a time but staying insanely focused. When we move off of that target with whatever kind of resources, I just feel like they're kind of playing with us. So obviously you have to get along. I know I can get along with people, but as far as how do you deal with that, this is an area I can't say that I do have a lot of experience in.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Thank you. So, I've known you for quite a while, not as long as Tom, but not as old as Tom, so. People think I'm sort of rude at times, but we're all playing that with Tom. So your involvement, as you described more recently, is something that I've very much encouraged. You and I have been talking for several years, not specific to any run for a particular seat, but just in general. And through that, I have gotten to know you much better than I knew you before, and I'm very encouraged by your desire to make things better. Your unique experiences, your passion is very much something I look for in people willing to step up and help. I just wanted to make that statement. I will remind you, because you haven't had a meeting yet, but you are on the Douglas County Planning Commission, whether you like it or not. So there was a question earlier about some of your experience. You're one of our newest members of the Planning Commission, and we appreciate your willingness to step up and do that. So my question is, and it's as much a statement as a question, regardless of what happens today, do you intend to continue to find a way to be involved and try to help this community?
I absolutely do. Look, this is a big piece of this has been a learning experience for me and an opportunity to show anybody can stand up here and do this. Too many people think that there's not opportunities. And if nothing else comes of this, if I can get other people to do the same thing I'm doing, I think it's better for all of us. So you definitely have not seen the last of me if this doesn't go my direction today. For me, it's been a learning experience, and I'll take everything I learned here today, and I'm going to bring it back again.
Thank you for that answer. That was fantastic. Thank you for your time today. Again, I'm going to go through the rest of the list, do some deliberation, and make a decision. So, again, thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you. So our next qualified candidate is Thomas Dole. Mr. Dole, please come forward. Again, you've got up to 5 minutes. Ask some questions.
Commissioners, I appreciate this opportunity to talk with you today. And we were very gracious to give me time yesterday, Commissioner Freeman, Commissioner Kress. I appreciated the time on short notice. I'm also your treasurer for the Douglas County Republican Central Committee. I do want to express here that I am interested in fostering a good, strong working relationship with you. And I know other members of the board are as well. So I want to express that. I ran for this because I want to serve. I'm very concerned about the condition of Oregon and the condition of Douglas County and also Coos and Curry County. I grew up in Roseburg. I went to public schools here, K through 12, went to Roseburg High School. I want to give a little background. After that, I worked for, or actually went to the University of Oregon and graduated with a degree in business. And later got a master's degree in applied information management. And that's basically, what we do with the internet as far as marketing. And that's what it's also taught courses to graduate students at the University of Oregon in data mining. I'm able to take a lot of information, terabytes of information, and bring that into knowledge that we can actually use to make decisions. And I think that's one of the things that I really offer here, is the ability to use those tools in what I would do as a legislator. I expressed to the commissioners yesterday that should I continue, I received the lowest number of votes of anybody, and that's okay. I am a Christian. I ask for God's will in everything that I do in my prayers, and He showed me very clearly that maybe this isn't the opportunity. I think this is a good opportunity though to express I do want to serve. If I don't get this, if there are future opportunities to serve on committees, I would welcome that opportunity. Please keep me in mind, because I really want to serve. I want to help to make Oregon better and Douglas County specifically make it better. Another thing that I'm concerned about is the lack of attention to unintended consequences. I point to a law that electric cars are going to be the norm in 2035. I don't believe that we have the infrastructure to be able to support that amount of electricity. Those are some unintended consequences. So what's it going to do to our power grid? I don't know if those things were looked at or not, but that's a very serious concern. With our students, there's a lot of things that are out for consideration in terms of sharing men's bathrooms, women's bathrooms with transgender folks, with critical race theory, a number of different things. And I really support getting back to the basics, reading, writing, and arithmetic, if you will. I don't think we want to go to those fringe areas. I think that those fads will go away over time. And I believe that people will look at that as a waste of time, waste of effort, and something that potentially is harmful to our kids. We need to protect our children. Absolutely, the constitutional rights. We see our constitutional rights being whittled away, right of free speech, especially on our social media, where conservative people are, censored and taken off of a lot of the streams, where when the liberal view is able to be expressed readily. That's changed on Twitter with Elon Musk, but there's still some issues that need to iron out. What can we do on a state level? California has some great privacy laws. I point to that. I think we really need to have privacy laws here in Oregon. You see on a lot of websites it says if you're in California, you get this special treatment. Well, I want special treatment for Oregon. How people use personally identifiable information. How people, how much of their data is accessible to third-party sites. There needs to be transparency, showing what all of these companies will do in terms of, in all of these areas. This is something that's been studied my,
Mr. Dole, your time is expired.
okay,
So you
that was
want
my thesis as well.
So I think maybe you can work more into your answers. So
Yes, thank
we
you.
go down the list. So, Mr. Taylor. Sorry, Commissioner Taylor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I don't have any questions. Thank you. Mr. Dole.
Commissioner Sweet.
No questions. Thank you for your presentation. Thank you.
Commissioner Mann.
So I don't know anything about you other than what you just said.
Right.
Same question as I had for Mr. Allen about serving on different boards.
Okay. Thank you for the question. I really appreciate that. I haven't served on, political campaigns of candidates on a state and local basis, but I have on a national basis. I helped a congressman in District 2 get elected. I placed media for him. I helped to write speeches for him. I went to Washington, D.C. during freshman orientation. I helped him negotiate his committee assignments. And I think this is very germane to what we're talking about here. It was said that they couldn't know anything on an agriculture committee, natural resources committee. I got the congressman in front of Newt Gingrich. I got the congressman in front of the president of the freshman class. Anyway, he got the assignment, so I was able to negotiate that. In terms of boards, a lot of my public service has been outside of politics. I've worked on a project with ADAPT when I was at KPIC TV. I also worked on in areas such as getting the wall, Veterans Wall in Sutherland. I helped on the website for that and communicating to people why they should visit that. It was very successful. I also helped to keep fireworks in Roseburg. I was on the fireworks committee for Douglas County, bringing the fireworks to town and negotiating with people and asking for funds. We had to fund that ourselves, so we asked for funds from businesses. I was very active in the fundraising. Does that answer your question?
Thank you.
Okay.
Further questions? No. So we'll go to Curry County. Commissioner Alcorn.
I have no questions, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
Commissioner Herzog.
No questions.
Thank you.
Commissioner Boyce.
Just likewise to extend gratitude for Mr. Dole, his willingness to step up, and I know he's got a wonderful heart. It was great to be able to shake your hand last weekend. Thank you.
I enjoyed it as well. Thank you.
Back to the room, Commissioner Press. Commissioner Boyce.
None for me, thanks.
So I'd like to thank you for taking the time to come in and meet with us. Before this meeting, it was very helpful. I genuinely believe that you're doing a great job on the Central Committee and helping with them, and I think you're genuinely offer to work with the commissioners, and I'm looking forward to continuing that work together. Thank you very much. All right. So, as we go on to the next phase, again, this is the deliberation phase. I'm going to call the list. This is not a vote, so we're not particularly seeking to hear, what it is you're going to vote for, but if there's comments you want to make or consideration you want to have the other commissioners hear, please do that at this time. We'll start here in the room again. Rod Taylor.
In appointing this position, we have a very great responsibility before us to serve the constituents of our counties with the most strategically effective legislative appointment that's possible. And I do believe that we've seen very good ideas and input from all three of the candidates, and I appreciate all three participating. The familiarity of the way things operate in Salem, the understanding of how to negotiate with the other camp is very important, and it does seem to me that we have some clarity in that regard, and I certainly am very pleased to hear the future intentions of everyone in the group to be involved in politics. All three of these gentlemen are assets to the cause. So those are my comments.
Commissioner Sweet.
Nothing to add.
Commissioner Main.
I do appreciate all 5 people stepping forward and putting their name on the list. It's not easy to do that. Most people will not do that. They don't want to be bothered. They want to add to the community, etc. So appreciate all 5 of you.
We'll go over to Curry County. Commissioner Alcorn.
I have no comments, Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Herzog.
I too would like to just say thank you to all 5 of the folks, especially the 3 that are qualified. Like has been said, it's not an easy thing to throw your name in the hat. So I appreciate their willingness. That's it, Chair.
Thank you. Commissioner Boyce.
Thank you, Commissioner Freeman. Just a comment that it's really humbling to be a part of this decision and to be in this room with my colleagues and to just see the gentleman step up there and say, here's what I believe. And I learned a lot today, and I just really, again, appreciate this opportunity. Thank you.
Back to the room. Commissioner Kress.
No, it sounds like a broken record, but I also would like to thank the candidates. I very much know what it's like to put yourself out there to do this thing where you're not comfortable doing it. And the willingness to serve, overcome that and do that. I really appreciate everything that's done, all 5 of you, and those who didn't make the slate. I appreciate the fact that they were willing to serve and they went out of your shell and wanted to do what you do. Thank you.
Commissioner Boyce.
Sure. So thanks again to the folks who threw their names in the hat. Politics is an interesting thing, and I can't imagine, especially in this circumstance, I guess I decided to run for commissioner, so why do you want to do that? I look at this as something sort of similar. You're going to work in an environment where you know you're going to be in the minority, you're going to be away from home. It's not necessarily a fun job. So thank you for being willing to do that. But my encouragement to all of us 9 commissioners who are about to cast a vote is turn off the noise. And what I mean by that is, the first time we went through this, and I think this is our 4th time making legislative appointment, it was, there was no concern about taking someone from a House seat and moving them to the Senate seat. This time, that seems to be some people's concern. The last time we did it, it was you have to vote for the person who received the most votes from the PCPs because that's the will of the people. This time, there's no concern about the person who got the most votes. This time, it's you got to vote for somebody from Douglas County because you're from Douglas County. And I will tell you that it's a little offensive to me to have people from Douglas County suggest that former Senator Dallas Hurd wasn't as deeply concerned about representing the folks that he represented in Coos County and Curry County. And it's also offensive to me to consider that former Senator Jeff Cruz wasn't as interested in representing the folks from Coos County and Curry County as he was the folks from Douglas County. And the truth is, our jobs today is simply defined in asking us to pick the person that we feel like is going to be the most effective at representing all of us and getting the work done in the state. My plea to you is to focus on that and turn off the noise.
Thank you. So I want to start by apologizing on behalf of the Secretary of State to Todd Long and Richard Vanderbilt. Richard called me at the beginning of this. We had a couple conversations, and I agree that information was not clear up until and through the precinct committee meeting that was held on Saturday. And I think that is unacceptable for the Secretary of State not to be clear on that. and put folks through a very difficult process. I'm also very thankful that the precinct committee people decided to have 5 people on the slate, so that today we were able to deal with a valid and real slate, and it wasn't a problem. I would like to mention, Commissioner Boyce mentioned this. This is the 4th legislative appointment in 8 years that I've been involved. We've also appointed a clerk, surveyor, assessor, and a treasurer, and an interim commissioner. That's 9 elected official appointments in a matter of 8 years. 9 elected officials that, but for one gentleman died, and it certainly wasn't an intent of his own. But the other ones left early. They created a problem. We're here today to try to solve a problem that we did not create. I want to make sure folks understand that. Like I said earlier, when Mr. Allen was up here, I've known him the longest, and I've encouraged him, and will continue to encourage him, to find the right place at the right time. I've also worked with Representative Brock Smith in a couple different capacities. We were both commissioners together, and I want to talk a little bit about a difficult vote that he had to once make on the ONC board. So when I joined the ONC board, we had the president of the ONC board was a commissioner named Tony Hyde. And Tony was a great president of our board. Vice president was Simon Hare, who we all liked and was a good friend of ours. And my second year of being on the board, I was in the beginning of my second year, I was appointed to the Treasury Secretary position. Our president was not elected to his commissioner seat, so he lost his role as president. And one would think the next person stepping up would be the vice president, who's been on the board much longer than I have, and very much wanted the position. Then County Commissioner Brock Smith and others on that board recognized that they had a friendship issue. They were friends with the vice chair, or the vice president of that board, but they also thought I would do a better job chairing and being the president of that organization. So they had to choose between what they thought was best for the organization and their friend. And then Commissioner Brock Smith voted for me to be the president, not knowing it was going to cause him problems with his friend. I feel like I'm having to do the same thing today. So that being said, we're going to call the roll, and I would have each commissioner simply state who they'd like to have their votes. The votes are weighted, so each Curry County and each Lewis County commissioner gets 6.33 votes. Each Douglas County commissioner gets 44.66 votes. And it is a majority. It doesn't have to be 50% plus 1. It's whichever candidate gets the most punitive votes. So we're going to start here in the room with Commissioner Taylor.
I cast my votes for David Brock Smith.
Commissioner Sweet.
David Brock Smith.
Commissioner Main.
David Brock Smith.
We'll go over to Curry County. Commissioner Alcorn.
My vote is for David Brock Smith.
Commissioner Herzog.
David Brock Smith.
Commissioner Boyce.
David Brock Smith.
I'm back here into the room to Douglas County Commissioner Kress.
David Brock Smith.
Commissioner Boyce.
David Brock Smith.
And I'm going to cast my vote also to Commissioner or Representative, soon to be Senator David Brock Smith. So that vote total, rounding up, is 112 votes to pass State Senator appointee-elect David Brock Smith. Gentlemen, is there any further? Yes, please.
Kind of wanted to make this earlier, but it just didn't fit. Last couple weeks, I've been really tearing myself up with this, and just something that Commissioner Boyce said earlier today. I honestly was thinking about it too hard. And the reality of the thing, it came down to there is by far the most qualified not only most qualified, but somebody that earned it, very much earned it. And I got to tell you that we are lucky to have David Brocksmith as our senator representing Douglas County and this district. And well, just want to say it.
So I will want to remind those in the room, I need you to stay to sign the paperwork. And those that are on the Zoom call, we're going to email the PDF, have I got that right? Over to you, if you could please sign that and send it right back to us. We'll get this information up to the state. There will be another process that we'll have to start. With that, we'll adjourn the meeting and thank you all for being here.
Ta-da.
Wow.
What do we need to sign?
They'll email it, just it says that that's what we're doing.
We can sign, just pick one.
Is that it?
It can be it. We all have a copy of this. We just need to pick one and all sign it. And then forward it to the Secretary of State. I think we have to copy, don't we? Copy Douglas County, maybe.
I'm sure we'll copy everybody. I just have one, before we do that, I have one question. One comment about who is bad mouthing?
Well, just a second. I think we're still on Zoom, because that usually means we're still.
Hit disconnect on your laptop.
Well, I know, but I don't think that. This is it. Dave, can you tell Miranda we're done?
That's not connected.
We're still on. Do you guys want to say something?
Nope.
Okay.
Thank you.
I got the computer fixed. It just is.
Okay. Well, it actually turned out okay. I mean,
Did you turn that off?
Actually, it was damn lucky you got that. I was trying to get over here and never did. And my phone wasn't on, by the way.
My question was,
people, that's very small. So we have to bring in tourists. And being on the farm trail, even though it's just beginning, has really helped do that. We really want to make it a destination for anybody. My mom and I began Dragonfly Farm just 3 years ago. When I found out that I could grow a seed and turn that into food, it was like, oh my gosh, why wouldn't you do this? I just quit my day job and I just signed the paper to be an official co-owner of the farm. This is what I want to do for the rest of my life and grow with the community.
Out of the Outdoor Recreation Action Team, we came up with a series of maps that show where the best places to go recreate are. We know where we're going to send people now, and we got a great map that shows all the best places to go see.
For us to get a mapping project done to this extent is pretty impressive. We're patting ourselves on the back. I don't know anybody else is, but we're doing it.
From that, we decided that there was some places that needed help, so we came up with a mountain bike plan, and we also worked on designating a state scenic bikeway. The Outdoor Recreation Action Team was also looking at how we can make scuba diving better in this area. So we came up with the idea for a scuba fill station. So now people that want to come and dive in this area, they can dive for multiple days because they can get their tanks filled up again. When I started the Rural Tourism Studio, my business, South Coast Tours, was really small. And now we've grown to about 5 or 6 guides, and we're doing tours all over from Brookings all the way up to Coos Bay.
Overall, tourism is on the rise here. We've had a bang-up last 2 years, and it's like a breath of fresh air down here.
My hope for the area is that we still keep that sense of place.
Loving a place to death is a big concern that I have, and it's a balance. We're going to promote tourism, but we want to do it in a sustainable way. One of the biggest reasons that this area has been so successful since the tourism studio is the people that are involved. We have a lot of great, motivated, smart people who understand the need to promote tourism in the right way, and it's really all about the people.
When you live in a rural community like we do, from Bandon down to Brookings, and you're strapped for cash, relationships are crucial.